Hello, I am your host, Doc Rotten, and this is Horror News Radio, the official Gruesome Magazine podcast. Back with me again this week are the scariest, goriest, bloodiest co-host on the net. And tonight we're reviewing Stranger Things streaming 4, season 4. How you like that for a start? Season 4 streaming now on Netflix. Let me introduce you to my co-host. We like train wrecks. The award-winning filmmaker, Christopher G. Moore. How you doing, sir?
Did you get sucked into the upside down a little bit
there? I think I did.
I'm doing great. I've got my Dustin hat. I got my Stranger Things shirt on. So I'm all about talking about Stranger Things because you know me, I'm a huge fan of this series.
You are indeed a huge fan. I remember when the first season came out. Feels like a decade ago. It's not quite. Maybe it is.
6 years ago.
You were a fanatic about it. In fact, sir, you had a very popular cosplay out of it. You want to share what that was?
Well, when Stranger Things came out, around the same time the first Doctor Strange came out, and I remember when I was watching Doctor Strange in the theater when they said that I have Agamotto, I was thinking Ego Moto. And so I kept thinking of all these correlations between the two. And within a short period of time, I came up with my sort of mashup between the two, called it Doctor Stranger Things. And I really didn't wear it for very. I mean, I had like her pink dress from the first season. I wore that, which I was embarrassed about. And I created almost like the shield that Doctor Strange makes, but I put the alphabet with the colored Christmas lights on it, and I even had a Eggo box, and I did all I did all these kind of things, and it was like the first kind of major cosplay I kind of ever did, and I wore it for a short period of time, and then all of a sudden people were saying, "Hey, your picture just popped up. Just popped up on Sci-Fi. Your picture popped on this person's," and it went viral. I mean, crazy viral to where at some point C. Robert Cargill, who co-wrote Doctor Strange, so he said, I was waiting to see this cosplay mashup. And I had people from all over the world contacted me out of the blue. I had the person in the Philippines and all these people like saying really nice compliments. And so, yeah, for a while there, I felt like a little bit of a celebrity. I never thought I'd be famous for wearing a pink dress, but there you go. So yeah, I owe a lot to this series. I mean, but at the same time, I'm just a fan of the series in general because I'm one of those people that was a kid in the 80s. And so it just really connected with me a lot. And it kind of makes me mad because this seems like the kind of series that I would want to create. And the Duffer Brothers are from North Carolina, so
right. For those who don't know, both Christopher and I live in North Carolina, and the Duffer Brothers are nearby in Durham.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least they were at some point in their lives. They're out and about now, but anyway. So let's get. So we loved the first 3 seasons, right? The first season was huge for us, and then. I'm trying to recall. I think the second season worked well, and the third season was a little off. Not for you,
for me,
but for me, a little bit. And this one, of course, we're going to find out tonight where it stands with the other 3. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about the entire series, or not series, but season 4, which was split up into 2 halves. They released 1 through 6 or 7. 1 through. I have it right here. Let's get it right.
I think that's right. Was it like 7 and 8?
Yeah, 1 through 7. They did 1 through 7 on May 27th, and then they did
8 and 9.
8 and 9 on July 1st. And of course, there's a lot of hours in here. They broke records with it. They introduced new characters that are fan favorites now. A lot of crazy things went on with this, but that was the first where they broke it up. And it was a commitment to watch it because it's a lot of time. As you can see, only 2 of us out of the Grue-Crew were able to actually get it all fitted into their schedule at this point. So we are a little late to the game as that goes, but there is a lot to discuss, and we definitely want to have our say before we move on with the rest of the summer of horror content. What we're going to do is we're going to give our first impression of the entire season, and then that will be spoiler free. That's going to be hard. It'll be spoiler free.
Yeah.
And then we're going to dive into a discussion. We will get into spoilers, all kinds of things, and then we'll wrap things up with our final thoughts, our score, and our favorite scene or scenes. There's enough to do multiple scenes since there's only two of us, so we'll probably talk about a number of scenes. All right, so let's take a look at the card. All right, Stranger Things season 4 on Netflix. Part 1 was available May 27th. Part 2 began on July 1st. The synopsis was set in March of 1986, 8 months after the events of the third season. The fourth season is split into different plot lines. 11 is reunited with Dr. Martin Brenner to recover her powers. Joyce Byers and Murray Bauman head to Russia to rescue Jim Hopper. A slight spoiler, but I think we knew. In Hawkins, Dustin, Lucas, Max, and the crew face the evil of Vecna or Venka. I spelled it wrong.
Vecna.
It's Vecna. The life of a dyslexic. It's really terrible. All right. Directed by the Duffer Brothers, Sean Levy and Nimrod Antal. Written by the Duffer Brothers, Caitlin Schneiderhan, Paul Deichter, and Kate Treffry or Trefry. Treffry. I'm going to go with that. Curtis Gwynn. Sometimes I just want to give up. All right. The cast includes, and not limited to, Winona Ryder, Dave Harbour, Millie Bobby Brown, Finn Wolfhard, Galen Matarazzo, Caleb McLaughlin, Noah Schnapp, Sadie Sink, Natalia Dyer, right? Charlie Heaton, Joe Keery, Maya Hawke, Brett Gelman, Priya Ferguson, Matthew Modine, Paul Reiser, Joseph Quinn, and Jamie Campbell Bower. Or Bower. I think it's Bower, but it might be Bower. Anyway, regardless, many of these people over the past 4 years have become household names. People know who they are. They've been in very popular films in addition to this, and some of them are newfound favorites. It's very interesting, and I think we're going to be hearing a lot from most of these. Of course, Winona Ryder, Dave Harbour, Matthew Modine, and Paul Reiser are the adult characters, if you will, and have been in. And then there's another one in here too, Brett Gelman, right? Brett Gelman plays Murray, and many people will know those names from various films, and of course there are a few other names we'll drop here shortly. But I ramble. Let's get into things. All right, Christopher, let's hear it. What was your first impression of the season? And if I said earlier we're just going to do the whole season, but why don't we go ahead and break it up into part 1 and part 2?
Okay.
So tell me what your first impression on part 1 was, and then follow up with your first impression.
Well, I liked all of it, so
all right,
I'm not going to divide it up.
Okay.
To me, it's all one thing, regardless of us having to wait. It's more of just a cliffhanger to the ending. I guess the whole first season is sort of the buildup of what the main villain is about, and then the second half is them fighting, and that's basically it. I absolutely loved this season. I think this season is up there with the first season, and just how they've with each season they've kind of gone into a more horror direction. Us, we love when they make it more horror, because even the last season was very Thing-ish. They had this big globulous blob of flesh monster. And this one, they actually put a face to the evil. This wasn't just some Demogorgon type villain. We have the Vecna villain, and he's now he's up there. I think he's just as iconic as any of the other horror villains we have out there, which is cool. Which is, which if you see basically there's elements of this that actually sell making another Nightmare on Elm Street film.
You might be right about that.
I mean, there's elements of The Ring. There's elements of so many different horror properties in this. That, and I think, from the get-go, that first episode, the way it ends, it's like, oh crap. we're not playing anymore. And I was like, you know, these families that thought this is the Stranger Things was like a family type show. It's definitely not that anymore. It's gone full horror in what they're having to battle. And I think and the interesting thing is like we have this sort of stable of different characters that we normally into, but then we have a lot of these new characters that actually add an extra element of coolness to it and fun to it, you know, whether it's the new character of Argyle, the sort of like the stoner pizza guy, or Eddie Munson, the guitar guy. I mean the D&D, you know, moderator. I mean, and then also, you know, the villain character and how we get to sort of see how he came about.
Maybe a few Russians in there for the mix.
Yeah, yeah, and of course, you know, we get Robert Englund in there who supposedly auditioned for it, and they hadn't really planned that whole Nightmare on Elm Street angle to it. So, but yeah, I was really blown away by this season because yeah, to me, this taps into the fears stuff that you had in the early Nightmare on Elm Street stuff, when it was all about like when you have a villain that can tap into your biggest fears, you have that element of it. And there were moments where, you know, my mouth was agape, and I was like, "Oh my God, is this happening? Oh my God, no!" And so I was there was moments of shock, and I think when it comes to needle drops and the utilization of music in a
Awesome.
series, this is better than some movies do. I mean, to the point to where it adds so much more to it. You know, the Kate Bush song, which they incorporate in it, is just it's brilliant. I'm so glad that she's she's broken all these records, making all this money.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is
She's
amazing that what 34 years after it was released, it's number one again, or number one on the charts. So
Yeah, and
pretty
so
crazy.
like there's some music that happens later on towards the end when the whole big fight happens that is an emotional and had me on the edge of my seat. And I'm like, oh crap, what's going to happen? So yeah, I loved every element of it. I mean, I think the only thing I kind of hate when they have to divide up some of the crew. You know, you
Mhm.
kind of want them all together. So I think that's, if I could point out any kind of negative, but that's a minor thing. It doesn't really take away from my enjoyment of it. But I loved everything. I mean, yeah, and the whole time I'm watching, did they make this for me?
They kind of did, didn't they?
There's a scene that's like basically a Silence of the Lambs scene with Robert Englund. So I mean, there's like all these different scenes that like there, you know, there's not on Elm Street villain scenes. I mean, and there, you know, there's a little bit of Hellraiser. There's a little of all these things that I love in it. You know, there's even elements of John Hughes stuff. There's characters that are basically meant to make you remember, you know, characters from like the Breakfast Club and stuff. So for me, I was like, I feel like I felt that they had their own Vecna that tapped into my brain, and like we're gonna put all these elements in this series. And so regardless of it, the series in general being so long and so many episodes, and that was my biggest worry going into it. I don't know. I was like, it feels like so much. I couldn't get enough of it to where it made me excited to see season 5. And you think watching like 11, I forget how many hours of it, would be too much, but no, I loved every minute of it. And I can't say enough good things about it. I really, really enjoyed it. And, it's got so many iconic moments, you know, that of course people are doing memes about, especially Eddie Munson character.
The Eddie Munson stuff. Yep.
But again, also I think they did such a great job in all the different characters and stuff. I mean, of course, Steve's always a cool character in it.
You got
But
his
yeah,
time to shine. This
yeah. I mean, it's yeah, and I think, and I will say right now, I think it's a crime that Sadie Sink was not nominated for an Emmy for her performance, because in episode, I think it's 4, she does such an amazing job in that, and even throughout the series. But that one, I think it's called A Letter to Billy or something, or Dear Billy, I think.
Mhm.
It is a heartbreaking episode, and it's all because of her performance in that. But yeah, I can't see enough good things about it. I'm, you know, I just Of course, I'm biased. I love Stranger. I've loved the series so far. I haven't really had any problems with a lot of it, but this season I think is hitting its stride, and I think it all comes down because we've always had the sort of like the Demogorgon, the sort of non-talking, but now that we have like this evil that can talk and have conversations,
Mhm.
and is creepy AF, it just works so well. So yeah, I love this season so much.
Yeah, I did too. We should note, like, when we're talking about how long these are, the last episode is 2 hours and 19 minutes. Just to give you an idea of what we're talking about. The last two of them are basically movies in and of themselves, and they're good enough to be movies in and of themselves. I would have probably seen the last one in the theaters. I would love to have done that. It's this really felt like getting back into the vibe. There are some things that held me back, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But as far as it felt fresh again. It felt with the Vecna character and getting into the upside down world in the way they did, which was different but yet familiar. And they did a great job with it. And then we have another world on top of that with Vecna's world. Small spoilers, and that's bizarre and beautiful at the same time. And we have a villain. Right, we have a villain, and the villain is very scary, very well realized, very well executed, very well designed, and very well acted as well. It's very extraordinarily creepy. Yeah, it's going to be one of those monsters that we talk about. Even though I don't know if we'll ever see. I guess we'll see him in 5, maybe not. Well, I guess we will because I saw the ending. So yes, for me this was great, and I love the new characters, as most people did. The one thing that kind of bugged me is having all the characters split up, like you were saying, and the Russian part of it. While I had fun at points of it, felt like it always started to slow down the series. In the end, I'm glad we went through it because it thankfully they resolved that storyline in a very satisfying and wonderful way, both within the context of the finale and the codas, if you will, the little stingers at the end, the string of stingers that we get at the end of a series anymore. And all the actors and actresses are fantastic. Even though they're they're obviously growing, right? And I was real happy that we had like the time jump, so it kind of let the characters and the actors kind of follow their own growth a little bit, even though we know that they're still ahead of the game. they're older than the characters, but they work. And with the characters, the only one that I think is getting a little bit of not enough attention is let me get his name real quick before I screw it up. Is Will Byers. No,
Will Byers, yeah.
Yeah, and well, one, he has to deal with that horrible haircut. The second thing is that I don't know we'll get into it, but I think they fumbled his character just a little bit. They didn't really. I don't know. We'll get into that. So there are some things that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but not in any way to to make me not fully enjoy the series. It's I don't know. All right, then rush again. Time to go get the bathroom. And then whatever. So yeah. Although there are times in the Russia storyline that are really, really good, and there's a couple characters that I grew to like over time. And of course, we'll do a shout out now, right? We during the scenes with L, right, with 11, we have a friend of ours show up with an actually speaking part.
Jason Vale, yeah, is one of the military people there, or I guess it's military, but yeah, it's security people, I guess. Yeah, he shows up because I'd heard that he was. I think the last time I talked to him, he was working on a little bit on that Marvel TV show. What the hell is the name of it? The bow and arrow guy. What's his name?
Hawkeye.
Hawkeye.
Oh my god,
my brain doesn't work.
The bow and arrow guy. See, that's what Hawkeye.
Yeah, he did some stuff on that as like a stand-in, I guess. But and he mentioned he was going to be on something coming up, but he couldn't mention it. And I think I mentioned it's like Stranger Things. I don't think he answered it right away.
He couldn't say it.
But yeah, I was excited to see it because I know he mentioned it, and so when I finally saw it, I was like, "Oh, dude, the dude's got a speaking part, and he's actually, part of it." And so I thought that was kind of cool seeing that, because every once in a while I'll see people that I've had cross paths with or whatever. It was kind of like when we saw a friend of mine that was in the Haunting a Hill House.
Kate.
Yeah, Katie Carpenter. So when I saw her, it's always that was great. I was like, oh, this is even better, I'd evidently, there's like some of the I kind of want to take a tour of some of the places in Atlanta where they've shot some of these things at. But yeah, I think it's so
congratulations to Mr. Vale.
Yeah. Oh, there's also a cameo by something else, right?
What's that?
Conan's sword.
The
movie Conan. Conan the Barbarian shows up.
Yeah, well, there are so are there Easter eggs in this like that? What other Easter eggs do we have?
Well, I mean, you just have like the normal. I mean, of course, there's a one part where they go to Dustin's girlfriend's house, and there's the one sister that's the emo sister, and she's basically made to look like Ali Sheedy from
She
Breakfast
does
Club.
Exactly. It's crazy how much she looks like her.
And then there's the girl that Maya Hawke's character is interested in, and she has looks that are very Molly Ringwald from like John Hughes films. So there is kind of that cool thing of like them. But yeah. I mean, because there's, I mean, that whole thing when they're in the house with all the kids and stuff, it feels like a John Hughes type movie situation. But yeah, there's like these little Easter eggs and stuff when it comes to just properties that they sort of like, because even like, I mean, you can sort of see that the Vecna character is almost like a mixture of Freddy Krueger and Pinhead, which Jamie Campbell Bower, who played Vecna, when he auditioned, they gave him sides to read, and one of those was from Hellraiser, and the other one was from a film called Primal Fear, which I don't know if you've ever seen that. Psychological thriller where you find out the guy's been just playing the lawyer the whole time, and he was actually guilty. So yeah, it is kind of interesting, all the different things, even just like when the first girl dies, it's very The Ring. They even say that like most of these people die within a certain amount of days, just like 7 days. So you have that, just the and of course I mentioned the Silence of the Lambs part, because there's a part where they go interview Robert Englund's character in this sort of underground prison area, and the guy gives them rules and what you're supposed to do and not do when you're in there. And the whole time I'm like, oh my God, this is like definitely like Silence of the Lambs. So yeah, you have a lot of those things that sort of tie into other properties, other movies. Those are the few off my head. I don't have like a list for this.
No. I mean, that's fine. That's enough. That's enough. But let's talk about Eddie Munson, because Eddie Munson is kind of the breakout star. He's kind of the the Joe Keery, the Steve Harrington of this season, because Steve Harrington, who also gets time to shine, was a character that wasn't supposed to make it past season 1.
Yeah.
But when they found they just liked what they saw when they were filming. But he also became a very popular character, so he's thrown into the story quite a bit. And I think that Joseph Quinn coming in as Eddie Munson is another character just like that. He won over tons of horror fans, doing devil horns and saying that, Iron Maiden gives music. And of course, doing the Master of Puppets song. So from Metallica. He's a great character. He's a fun character, and he actually has kind of an arc. He's a different kind of character. He's kind of if you want to go to back to Breakfast Club, he's the he's the biker character, or not the biker character, but who is that? Oh my god, I can't remember his name.
Oh, is it Judd?
Yes.
Judd, what is his name?
Look at us not figuring it out.
Yeah. Well, but also, I mean, you also have like the football player guy too, who's but he's more just the normal jock character you find in a lot of 80s.
Yeah, Judd Nelson. That's why we couldn't get it. We were going but he's a lot like Emilio Estevez's character.
And I think that's the cool thing. I think even somebody had even pointed out there's a point where Sadie Sink's character and Lucas's character, they have the same outfits as the 70s show.
No, I didn't know that.
70s show, yeah. So you definitely have a lot of those things, and then there's also pieces of dialogue that tie into things too. But yeah, I mean, the Eddie Munson character is definitely. I think that's the character I think most people fall in love with, and I think also a lot of these rock characters are either just a-holes or or they're jerks or whatever. And this one, he's actually kind of endearing. He's actually sort of like a cool character, and actually the whole storyline involving him ties into the 80s perfectly, because I don't know if you remember like the satanic panic of the 80s where people were saying Dungeons and Dragons was evil and satanic.
A lot of that going on.
Yeah, I remember in school, when I was in school, they used to say, oh, somebody had sacrificed a bunch of cats and dogs up on this hill and where I was living, and so we were all like, oh my god, the satanic people are crazy and coming after people. So yeah, it was a real thing back in the day. So, and people, I remember seeing the things on TV where they say like, Dungeons and Dragons is evil, and a lot of Christian organizations were against it, and so I think that's sort of a great way to tie that in, even though it made me kind of mad how the community turned so quickly.
They did.
Yeah, but I will say, I think his character has so much heart, and has one of the most badass things in cinema or TV with him playing his guitar on the top of that mobile home.
Yeah, it's going to be a thing. You're going to see that again in other movies, and other things are going to, reference back to that. It is. I think it will be an iconic shot for the series as time goes by.
Well, I think that's the great thing about this, because I think even with the earlier parts of the series, there's been things that have been very iconic and stand out a lot when it comes to the series. And when you have that moment, every time like a body will start floating and do the little. That first time that the Chrissy girl, when she dies, I don't know about you guys, I was like, holy crap, they are not playing. This is we're not cutting away from seeing, and her eyes go away, and it's pretty brutal. But yeah, there's things like that really stand out. And also, I don't know about you, I really love the Argyle guy.
Yes. He was blessed too.
He's a lot of fun as well. Sort of a new addition to the characters and stuff. Who's almost like the Spicoli character from Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
A lot.
So you have a lot of these characters that are sort of like variations of other characters from like 80s movies in general.
Yeah. Well, let's give the Plutonic Relation Award for best platonic relationship to Steve and Robin. Wow, they are so good together, these two characters, and I really enjoyed their story and their camaraderie, and how they supported and helped each other, right, in their friendship. It felt like a genuine friendship.
Well, and to the point to where also I think people made fun of the fact because he's always been like the babysitter character throughout much of the series. He went from being sort of like the bullyish type character to being like this character who's always trying to defend other people. But I think the very end scene when Maya Hawke's character finally gets to sort of start connecting with the girl, he's looking over like almost like the proud mom.
He
Like,
does, yeah.
let me fold these clothes while I watch. And but at the same time, it made me kind of sad. It's almost like the character that has to watch other people be happy with their relationships or whatever, and he's always stuck not being able to, connect with people, because there's that whole thing when they're in the video store. Another thing that connects, because I managed a video store for 7 years, when they're working at the video store and he's trying to hit on the girl. He's like, and then he finds out she's, trying to find a movie to watch with her boyfriend. It's like, poor Steve.
Poor Steve. He just needs to walk around shirtless more often. He'll.
Oh well, I know. I had some friends that was a thirst trap for them for sure.
Let's talk about Sadie Sink. Max, you mentioned it, that she should have gotten an Emmy nomination. I think this is basically her season. Because a good part of the story centers around her. She is the target for Vecna, the third one that he needs, right? Third or fourth one that he needs to open up all the portals. I guess it's the fourth one. And so we get a lot of time with her, and she really shines. I mean, not only in the episode you talked about, episode 4, where she has to, basically say she just decides to do goodbye letters to her family, but just before that and after that, and the more she's, has to put herself on the line, and then the finale when that happens. So, anything you want to add to that?
She just like, from an emotional standpoint, she's just like, you really feel for her throughout the whole series, and as she's sort of stuck in this place to where she's having to write letters to people because she feels like she's going to die, and it's like, oh God, and even the moment where, and then we have the moment where Vecna plays tricks on her and does the Freddy Krueger thing of like, oh, and then makes it think it's a loved one, and it ends up being Vecna. Those type of moments that are very Freddy Kruegerish, and she does a really great job. But yeah, I will say that, like, towards the end, when we think, I thought, oh crap, are they actually going to kill Max off? I was like, I was yelling at my TV. Oh my God, no. I was actually yelling that to my TV because I was like, I felt so bad for her. I was like, she's been through so much. She's had to see her brother die, even though he was such a jerk to her, and she deserves better, than this. And again, when you can create a character that can make you sort of connect with them, and you feel for them, and you want them to get out of the situation okay. Yeah, I think she's so amazing. And I think, again, the Dear Billy episode, I think, she deserves all the awards for that, for her role in that, but yeah, I think the finally kind of reconnecting a little bit with Lucas. I love their relationship, and
11 for the last,
and 11 as well. Yeah. I mean, and I think one good thing about this season is also how it sort of connects to the previous seasons, because there's a little bit of flashbacks of different things at different points, sometimes for story wise, but also just the connections that they had. And so I think that's why it feels like the first season, because you have those connections to those characters, and they did a really great job of not, because sometimes when you have like flashbacks or things, it's unneeded. We really don't have to go back to that, and it feels like filler. But this, it feels like it's amping on, like, okay, we know why we like these characters. We see where they came from. We see where they are now, and I think your issues with Will, I didn't really have a major issue with Will, and because I think also next season, the 5th season, is going to be more focused on him.
I think
he's the one that started it all. So, and I think a lot of that stuff is more subtle in the issues with that.
Well, I liked how they were handling his character as far as fighting with the emotions he was having, because there's something they're heading toward. that is very strong in this, and you see it. But he also feels like he doesn't really, he doesn't. He doesn't feel like he fits with the rest of the crew anymore. It's really interesting. And this is a very minor picky things, right? Because when those scenes worked with the four of them in the pizza van, it was fantastic. It was fantastic, right? So.
Oh yeah. I mean, them traveling and going different places, and and also just I think also the series made me feel bad for 11 too, because you realize she got bullied when she was in the training school or whatever. She goes to a new place hoping to start something new. She gets bullied there. It's like, give the girl a break. It's like she gets bullied everywhere.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about Joyce and Jim, because as we saw at the very end of the last season, Jim ends up in a Russian prison, or at least they heavily suggest he is. And of course, we find out he definitely is this time. It was no secret, but anyway, they tried. His story is pretty much an escape story, right? It's they got to get there and get him to escape, but there are elements of the horror because the demon monster dogs or the demogorgons are there, and they're basically it's they're Midnight Expressing it, trying to get to him and stuff. So it's all kinds of it's a different kind of, it's totally different than the rest of the storylines because of that aspect. However, what did we think of Hopper? Because he goes through a lot of stuff and is like extraordinarily physical pain in these episodes. What did you make of that?
I really enjoyed it because I think it's good to sort of mix it up and do something different to where it's not all the same type of stuff. And you have that sort of great escape elements. You have and then you have other elements where he's just, there's one great moment where when they send them all to eat this feast of food, and everybody's like, and he's like, they're not expecting us to live. They're just feeding us so that we'll feed the Demogorgon. I'm like, oh crap. It things like that, I think really worked really well. And I think just seeing how much of a badass Hopper is, he's doing his best. He's willing to suffer, like the whole thing about like him trying to knock his anklet things off. And he's willing to like, I was like, oh, I was hurting so much for him. But at the same time, it was like, he was really doing his best to get back, and I think also it was kind of cool to see seeing Winona Ryder's character like, okay, I'm just gonna this money, we're gonna go fly
to Russia.
I was like, what? And it's always great to see Brett Gelman like hamming it up and you finding out like he's and there's just a lot of funny bits involving them that feels it I don't know, I want to compare it to Indiana Jones, but it feels like that sort of like crazy adventure thing when you have wacky characters that are trying to get to a certain place. And I think for me, it was kind of emotional to see them finally reunite. Talk about people that have changed, and we talk about these kids going from like these little babies to like
they feel like little babies
able to drink by the end, by the end of the series. Because I think Dustin just is turning 20 this year. But also Hopper, in the very beginning, he was like, I think he actually gained weight for the role and stuff, and now he's like slim and like gaunt, and it's like, oh gosh. But yeah, I know I love that. And I love the sort of interesting thing with the Russians and the one guy who kept like, being two-faced and there was some really really funny elements to that. But also there was just like I felt bad for Hopper. He just wants to get back home, and he's having to suffer through so much You know,
And he didn't do anything wrong, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
no, he didn't.
So one last thing I'll bring up is I really enjoyed that I mean, I love seeing the old characters again, right? The main guys, you know, Dustin and Mike and Lucas and who's the Will, right? But they really gave a lot of attention to what would, you know, the supporting cast. And, you know, like Max or even, you know, even with, well, let's just say Max and the rest of the, I mean, they all got their chance to shine. Some of them, you know, shined a lot brighter than others, but I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed that this series has the opportunity to grow the cast because now I mean, the cast has doubled practically.
Yeah, it has, and I think Millie Bobby Brown made a crack that they need to pull a Game of Thrones and start killing people off. But I mean, they've killed other characters off. You know, we always have like our Barbs and our the Russian guy who liked what the cherry was it the cherry drink or whatever from 7-Eleven.
Mm-hmm.
We always have those specific, or even what's his name from Lord of the Rings, you know, when he showed up. So you have all these characters.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, you do have a few of these characters. So it's not like they're not willing to kill off beloved characters. I mean, there's still people that do justice for Barb at conventions. So
yeah, and we do get a reference to Barb in this season. That was fun.
We do, and we get sort of callbacks to some of the things that happened previously, and I like that, you know, because they're all connected to Vecna. He's been this sort of like this character in the background that's always been sort of that they haven't really met until this point.
I think they handled that really well. You know.
Yeah, they've had hints at it, but they just haven't. But yeah, I mean, you know, well, I mean, I guess you could say like if they're scared of killing off good characters, you know, what about Eddie Munson? You know, but if he's dead,
oh my gosh,
because you can't always assume that in some instances, especially how some people are reading into. Because there's always, especially when it comes to the DNA elements, they kind of tie into the story in general. And we've had that all along. And so I think some people think that he might be utilized from Vecna. But I mean, what did you think about the Vecna character?
Well, okay, so the Vecna character, of course, is complex because there's a whole backstory with him, and him being 1 instead of 11. I liked all of it. I liked how they kept us in the dark with what really happened when, you know, at the beginning, because we get this really gruesome cold open with the young 11, right? And you know, when she's going back and you know, reliving those memories, trying to find out what she blocked, you know, we get to see those again in a really technically fascinating way. They handled that really interesting as well, because they had to de-age her. It felt off, but it didn't look terrible. It looked actually fine, and it also helped that it was in a sequence that was akin to a dream sequence, right? Mm-hmm. So it didn't have to be 100%. You know, you could have that strange offness to it and still works fine. But the whole thing from his origin to the setting of the house to what it looks like now to what it looked like in the back, you know, when they did the flashback, to what it looks like now as a you know, abandoned house, to what it looks like you know, in the Upside Down, and then beating all that is what it looks like in Vecna's world, right? In his actual world, which is slightly different than the Upside Down. And you see, you know, everything's floating around and you know, and the clock, right? The grandfather clock floating around and all the stuff. And it all has these weird little meanings because there's a time when that is represented by the clock that needs to pop up. And it shows up early on as this kind of precursor to doom, right? So every time you see it, you know something's going to happen. When you hear the dong dong dongs, you know something bad's going to happen. So I really loved how they did that. The character looks absolutely he's a frightening looking character, and it could have gone bad because it is a full, you know,
It's a full practical creation.
but it looks wonderful, and I'm from what I've seen in some BTS footage that they, it looked as creepy in real life as it does on screen.
Well, supposedly Millie Bobby Brown was talking about it, that it made her. I mean, there's a new video that dropped on YouTube about Vecna and this stuff, and they interviewed some of the people. Millie Bobby Brown said that like she actually got scared and cried when he showed up when she met him for the first time. And so you have, and I think that's the cool part of it, is because I think if you see some of the behind the scenes stuff on some of the stuff after the first season, they did a lot of stuff where it was just guys running around in a green outfit, as the Demogorgon was just some kind of, or even the funny thing is when you see like the big blob, the big creature that's chasing people in the third season, it's just a guy in a red outfit. He's just crawling over people, and it's like, oh, this is weird. Yeah. So they create special effects around here, but here they made a full, other than maybe the tentacle stuff and maybe making stuff move on him, he's all practical, and it's really, really well done. And I think to me, that's how you do it, And when we talk about like the connection to Nightmare on Elm Street, you have an iconic house that ties into the character. And I mean, I love that aspect of it, where it always goes back to the house, because even in Nightmare on Elm Street, there's times where they pop up in the Nightmare on Elm Street house,
Yeah. There's a little bit of it in there as well.
Oh yeah, definitely a little bit of it. But again, they do that thing like they did in Nightmare on Elm Street, where he'll be playing some character from their life or whatever, and then all of a sudden it'll turn into them. And there's even one part where I think one of the police guy, he's talking to the little nerdy guy in the car, and he's got his hat, and it looks like a Freddy Krueger hat, and I'm like, but yeah, or even the makeup they did with Robert Englund is all kinds of creepy, because it's like he gouged out his own eyes, but there's like all this kind of like weird pus type stuff in his eye slits. It's like, ugh. I mean, the practical stuff really works really well, or even how they did some of the kills with the people, even that was more CGI. That stuff was like so horrible to watch.
Yeah, yes, it was obviously CGI, but at the same time, it was very effective. It was the sound effects, the visuals, the crunching. it was yeah. This is probably as much as I love the first season, I think this one is the scariest.
Yeah, and them ganging up at the end is very Dream Warriors too,
Well, there's that too.
But yeah. I mean, it's really scary, to where I was like, are the Duffer Brothers wanting to do a Nightmare on Street film or doing a sequel? Because if they done what they did with this series as what that sort of crappy, remake they tried to do in Nightmare on Street several years ago, I think there would be more of a love for that, because I think they actually took a lot of those elements and made it creepy, made that kind of element, that kind of villain creepy. But again, it also comes down to how the actor did it. Supposedly he didn't use any kind of there's not really much of a filter on his voice when he's doing the Vecna voice. That's actually him.
Oh wow,
speaking all creepy.
Yeah, he was very effective as the as one, and then of course when he was just the, I guess
like orderly.
Yeah, orderly. Yeah,
sort of. I mean, but he was very creepy then. Well, I was like, I don't trust him.
Oh, I didn't trust him. Well, of course the circumstances too were weird, because he kept appearing. But the the whole thing about they had, he had 3 names, and they kept saying this /1/Vecna. It was hilarious. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap this up, because we're gushing at this point. Let's go ahead and give our final thoughts, our score 1 to 5. Guess what it's going to be, and as many favorite scenes as you want to litter. Start us off.
Okay. I'm going to give this an 11 out of 11. How about
that? Nicely done. I'm putting that on the card. Yes.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. And I think like most people, I was kind of worried when I heard like, wow, this is a lot of, even before we get to like the last 2 episodes, a lot of those, some of the episodes sort of end were like an hour and a half. They were like movie length episodes, but I was enthralled throughout. So I never knew that this much content, because you'd worry that like, oh, okay, well they can knock this out, knock that out. But I loved it because again, I think I love the characters. I love what they're doing with how the story plays out, learning more about the 11 character and really what happened to her. Um, and also learning that there was this other guy pulling the strings um behind the curtain the whole time, and creating I feel like he's on the same level as Freddy Krueger, uh, Pinhead, or any of these type of characters, because he's very villainous. His ability to tap into your brain, and then when he does, he breaks you up like crackers and steals your eyes. Which also another thing ties in, because I've got a movie called Back or Creeper. Creature steals your eyes. But yeah, I loved every element, and I think there's moments that made me laugh. There's moments that made me emotional. There's moments that had me on the edge of my seat. I think this season is a return to form, and even a return to a better form, because they've really gone full tilt into like horror, and making horror, making it scary. So yeah, and yeah, and it's great to see the characters and stuff, and also the way it ends. It makes me excited to see where the last season will be. Which would be kind of sad, but this story's got to end at some point. Otherwise, we're going to be following the Stranger Things 50s edition, where all the characters are in their 50s. So yeah,
That'd be
as
weird
for
because that'd be like now.
yeah, that would be weird. Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, I loved every and I think if I were to say favorite scenes, I'll say the a few of the ones, and I'll end on probably my ultimate favorite. But I think the first death with Chrissy
Good
is an
point.
amazing
Yes.
scene. I think let's see. I think when I think of course the Sadie scene where she's in there and talking to Vecna, and she's trying to get away. That's a very powerful scene.
With the running up the hill.
The running up the hill, the Kate Bush song. Of course, we get the Eddie Munson saying where he's playing the guitar, which I'm sure everybody will be doing. You'll be seeing people at conventions doing that. But I think, or even just well, I mean, I guess the ultimate scene for me is like when it gets to the very end, when you have that, when we go between all the people battling at the same time, because it's such an emotional, powerful scene, whether it's freaking Hopper, the freaking Conan sword fighting a Demogorgon. But I think, or even when Natalie Dyer, when her character is like shooting a shotgun, like she's freaking, freaking Sigourney Weaver or something. But I think ultimately but I think the combination of that, along with that, when Sadie Sink, when Vecna's trying to take her, that's probably been one of the moments recently where it literally had me on the edge of my seat, and I was yelling no. I was like, oh my god, please don't kill please don't kill Max. So I don't know, just the combination of those kind of scenes together, I think is beautiful, because just the way they intercut between the different parts, and also just that music. I mean, that to me, that's the essence of why music makes everything even more powerful, because then it just like it helps everything flow to a certain level of just amazingness. And I don't know. Again, I can keep naming off different scenes, but those are the few that kind of really stood out for me.
Yeah, it's hard not to pick the Eddie Munson playing Master of Puppets. Get all the bats to come after him is a tremendous scene. Absolutely my favorite scene. But I've got more. I've got more. So yeah, I really love this one. To me, it's up there with the first season. It recaptures a lot of the essence of what I loved about the first season here with new characters and stuff. And I'm surprised, not many shows can do that. 4 seasons in, it's usually diminishing returns. Not here, not this time. This is not diminishing returns. I think it helps they have a great new villain, and it also helps they have great new supporting characters and utilize the new supporting characters they've have introduced over the past couple of seasons that weren't in the first season, right? Like Max and some of the others, right? So, yeah, I'm almost tempted to say it's my favorite season. I really, really enjoyed this. This one really held it together. Yeah, I really, I've grown to love these characters, so I really cared for them. So when they're in danger, I felt the danger. I wasn't sure, who was going to make it through the end, right? Even 11, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just weren't sure, especially for Max. Max was probably the one you're most concerned about, but there's others, right? And there's some emotional highs in here that are just you're on the edge of tears if you're not crying. You got that lump in your throat. Oh no. And there's some great themes with friendship and being honest with each other, and fears about friendship and fears about relationships. And then there's the whole there's just there's themes about loss and feeling regret, right? There's all these things that are really strong emotions to wrap into the story. And we often say, you take the horror away, do you still have a solid story underneath? And I think with Max alone, you certainly do, with her dealing with how she felt about that, right? So, and of course, with her and and how that affected her and Lucas, right? That was a really strong element that I liked, their relationship, their what happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot going on in this, and I really appreciate that. And that's the beauty of getting 11 hours of TV show instead of a 2-hour movie, right? That's what TV, that's part of the charm of why streaming is so popular right now, is because you get more time with these characters in shows like this, and it's proving to be a big deal right now, if you haven't noticed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give it 11 out of 11 as well. I think that's perfect. It's definitely one of the best things this year. My favorite scene, I've already said. It's also the horns, right? And there's a couple other things that happen, but really some of his dialogue when he's talking to Steve. We're talking to Steve about Dustin.
Mm-hmm.
And you're sharing, why are we friends with this guy? It's the attitude, right? It's the attitude. It was just the whole, or the tone, or whatever it was said. It was really interesting. And of course, when he's lying there after the bat attacking him, and Dustin's, they get to say the goodbyes. It's really heartbreaking. So that definitely that. I like you said, I like the new character. What's the new character's name? I don't have it straight in front of me. The character that's the
pizza guy,
the Spicoli guy,
Argyle.
He had some of the greatest lines as well. I really enjoyed him, and the whole references to weed and stuff, and what they had to do with all that, and just having the pizza truck alone, it was just brilliant. I really, I think this is the scene that you're talking about. I really enjoyed when Max goes into Vecna's world, right? And nobody else has, right? So he's the first one to get in there, and he's kind of surprised by it, right? And they have this, but it's slightly different than what you were talking about. it's just the realization of that world, with the house blown apart, but still floating together as if it's kind of where it should be, enough, but not. And, where the other kids are still stuck in these things growing out of these tree things growing out of the ground. And it was very haunting. It's very scary. It was vibrant. And it felt like an extension of that character, Vecna. So, and it felt very alien, even to the Upside Down. It still felt alien. It's felt even more alien than that. So, very fascinating what they were able to do there, and really enjoyed that part, because there were times when because we've seen a lot of the Upside Down, right? So adding this to it gave it a little bit more richness, right? And that was really strong. Is there anything else I want to say? I'm pretty much going to stop with that. I mean, I would love to. I wish this is one. I wish we had the opportunity and the time to go through every episode and really get into each episode. I mean, we did previous ones in like quarters and stuff like that, but they were a little bit more restrained, like 45-minute episodes. This one was just all over the place, and they broke it up, and it was really crazy. So we're doing it at one time, but really to get in there and pick each one of these episodes apart would have been a lot of fun. And I, can't recommend this series enough, and this season enough. Great work. Yeah,
and I think if you're definitely a horror fan, you definitely need to check out this newest season, because it goes for the horror vein, right away, and doesn't shy away from it. But yeah, I don't know. It's still just a fun season. It's got so many great moments in it, so many great, set pieces and visuals, and I don't know. It's so well crafted. So many great performances, and I really want to know what happens next.
I do too. I'm eager for the next season. They set it up well. With the stingers. Of course, with the idea that the things aren't quite over. Because Vecna says you've already lost, and he you didn't know what he meant, and then you see the final frames of it and you get the idea. Oh, I get it. And of course it does show that Will there's something. Will's still getting signals, for lack of a better word for it. He's still in tune with the Upside Down, and likely Vecna himself. So it's going to be interesting where they go with that.
And also, just let me point out, like, I don't know. I just love the playful nature of certain things, because I think in the very beginning, there's a really great, they go back and forth between Lucas playing basketball and then playing D&D, and how they sort of, they're both trying to win at what they're doing. And it's the way they do it is just perfection, I think, because I never thought I would see people playing D&D and people playing a basketball game. It would feel like it was the same type of thing. And it just works so well. So yeah, I don't know. I think they do such a great job in creating characters and creating these situations that make you really care about the characters and really enjoy what's happening. And so, hopefully with the 5th season, it won't go full dark to where we don't have, at least a little bit of the humor and stuff that they've had that great balance between the two throughout.
Yeah. And one thing I appreciated is, even though 11 did come in the end and did save the day, is all the Hawkins kids, they had to go into this without her. They had to step up, and they didn't know if she was going to make it. They didn't know what was going on, but yet they still had a plan, and they were going to execute that plan and put themselves in danger. And you got that, because that's a trap, right, for the show, is to always rely on 11. It's important for the show to ultimately do that, because that was her big arc in this particular season, was regaining her power. So it's not the way they handled that worked, where it could have been a repeat, but it wasn't. It didn't feel like a repeat. It didn't feel like the same thing. Because they also had the fact that she wasn't physically there, so that helped as well. And I really appreciated that. I really appreciate the effort they did not to have them be so reliant on her.
Yeah, a lot of them went down to the bottom of a lake.
Yes, which was great. Yeah, I love. Okay, so here's another scene I like. Gosh, we're just gonna keep talking. When they do that and they're and and oh my gosh, I gotta get his name again. I don't know why I can't remember his name all of a sudden. There's too many people. Eddie Munson. So Eddie Munson's talking. There's too many characters. Eddie Munson is talking to Steve, and he's talking about how he wasn't going to dive in, but he couldn't stay there on the boat by himself. He said, like you were talking about Nancy, that she literally dove in, didn't even think about it, just dove in. And of course, when she did, Robin did as well. And he was like, you can't get shown up. He had to jump into. I just really like that aspect of it. That they realize this and they share this, and to me, that's what makes these characters stand out. They put that little extra step into their characters.
Well, that, and also you get to see characters that have kind of grown over from the first season, because Natalie Dyer, her character in the very beginning, could barely hold a gun, and that's what she's like shooting a shotgun and stuff. Yep. So it is kind of interesting also how the characters have sort of grown and learn from, to where this girl who's all girly girl, she's got guns hidden in her room and stuff. So.
Yep. All right. Well, there you go. That's our review of Stranger Things season 4. We hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please hit the subscribe, the like button, share with a friend, and of course, leave your comments down below. There's so much happening now. There's a lot of stuff we didn't get to talk about. So you feel free to share your thoughts about those things and point those out. And of course, join us on our next episode, which is episode 500, by the way. Episode 500. Our next episode is episode 500, and we will be reviewing Nope.
So we're reviewing.
Nope.
I'm trying to do a pun there.
Nope.
So what movie are we reviewing on 500?
Nope.
We're not reviewing a movie on 500?
Nope. First base. All right. So yes, we are doing Jordan Peele's Nope. Can't wait to see it. Actually, it's one of the most anticipated, most highly anticipated horror films of the year, for certain. I mean, there are a few others out there that have popped up since then, but
they have a. If you take the back studio tour at Universal in Hollywood, they actually have the set that you can go through.
The Village, yeah.
And they've had a lot of influencers that have been going there, and they do a whole bit where they're like, flying saucers.
Just a couple of days away, and we get to see it. And
I know. Finally, find out what it's about.
Not of planet Earth for certain. I think we know that now, but we don't know much else.
Assume so.
We don't know much else, and it looks fantastic. So it is, I think, the perfect film for episode 500. And hopefully we'll have many of the crew back for it, and maybe some special announcements. We'll see. All right, Christopher, thank you for joining me. This was a lot of fun.
Well, you know me. If it's Stranger Things, I'm definitely going to be here.
Definitely going to talk about it.
In fact, I may have a new cosplay mashup I'm working on. So.
Sounds good.
Maybe a certain favorite character.
Does it involve a guitar?
Maybe.
Or are you going to be Max? You're going to be Max. No.
Yes, I'm going to be Max. I'm going to wear long red hair.
With the beard, that's going to go great.
Yes.
All right, let's quickly say goodnight before we embarrass ourselves.
Good night.